Picture this. You have the legendary Harrison Ford returning for one last adventure as Indiana Jones, and it flops. You have a live action spectacle remake of a beloved anime classic, Mulan, and it struggles to break even. You have two of the biggest stars in Hollywood, Ryan Gosling and Emily Blunt, in an action comedy that's critically acclaimed The Fall Guy, and it still loses money. Three massive, expensive, highly anticipated projects, and the only thing they have all in common is that, in the eyes of the studio, they were all to varying degrees a flop. Welcome to the Thought Before Bed, the podcast where I talk about all the stuff that keep me up at night. My name is KF, and tonight's thought is the film industry really dying? Is it an exaggeration? Is it already dead? And if it's really happening, what can we do to save it? But before we can understand what's happening to the cinema right now, we have to look at what it used to be. Back when it all started. Because once upon a time, going to the movies wasn't just something you did casually, it was an event. Cinema wasn't struggling to survive, it was just the beginning. It was an innovation. You got dressed up, stood in line, and sat shoulders to shoulders with strangers who gasped and cried and laughed with you. Not like today, you didn't scroll through endless titles on the screen at home. It was pure collective magic, something people back then never seen before. You see, cinema didn't start as an industry as it like today. It started as a wonder and innovation.
You had the glory days.
And it started with something so simple. Just a flicker of a moving picture on the wall. At this point, back in the late 18s, films lasted only a few minutes. They were shown in fairground cafes and music halls with a guy in the corner playing piano and at the same time even narrating what was happening on the screen. People were laughing, shouting, clapping. It wasn't quiet or formal, it was alive. The Science Media Museum described it perfectly. They weren't truly silent, they were noisy, communal experiences full of audience reactions. Then came storytelling by the late 1910s. Cinema was no longer just about watching images move, it became about emotions, characters, and stories. That's when the film industry as we know it today was born. Studios were built, cinema opened everywhere, and audiences didn't just want to see emotions, they wanted to feel something. Hollywood, of course, rose to power after World War One. Then Europe, after when European studios were struggling to recover, and from that moment on, the United States became the beating heart of cinema. By the 1930s, a lot of changes happened. Theaters weren't small anymore. They became big rooms, they were palaces with chandeliers, red velvet seats, and orchestras. In Britain, cinema attendance reached 31 million visits per week in 1936. Just imagine that. Whole families, entire towns gathering to get to experience a collective dream on the big screen. It's no wonder this period is remembered as Hollywood golden age. Movies like Gone with the Wind and The Wizard of Oz dazzled audiences with the new technicolor process, while the jazz singer marked a revolution with synchronized sounds as the first movie where characters actually spoke. From that point forward, the silent era was over. Cinema had found finally its voice. Not only because people were able to hear conversations, but also because it spoke culture. Because cinema isn't just about entertainment, it's a mirror, a reflection of our society, and who we are and what we believe in. Movies like Thelma and Louise challenged the way women were seen on screen, turning rebellion and strength into empowerment. On the other hand, The Godfather and The Sopranos painted a portrait of Italian American identity, of loyalty, power, and family.
You spend time with your family?
Sure I do.
Good. Because a man who doesn't spend time with his family can never be a real man.
In India, Bollywood was doing something similar, capturing cultural values through family bond, music, and celebration. As Alicia Sakin from Early Light Media wrote, film is one of the most important aspects of pop culture, reflecting our values, beliefs, and moral dilemmas. And she's right. Cinema shapes the way we dress, talk, and even feel. Think about it. Clueless influenced fashion. The Great Gatsby revived 1920s glamour. Lines like May the Force be with you from Star Wars became part of our everyday language. Then came the 1970s, at times that changed everything. This was the rise of the new Hollywood when young directors like Martin Scorsese, Steven Spielberg, and Francis Ford Coppola took control. Suddenly, filmmaking wasn't just glamorous as it was to be, it was dangerous, raw, and personal. Jaws and Star Wars reinvented cinema itself, creating the first true blockbusters and the idea of a summer release, something that could dominate theaters and sell toys and soundtracks, was born. Then came the digital revolution. CGI, once just a science fantasy, became real from the early experiments in Westworld and Tron to the jaw-dropping dinosaurs in Jurassic Park. Cinema had never felt so limitless. The 1980s brought the VCR, the ability to watch movies at home, then came cable, then the internet. Suddenly, movies weren't just confined to theaters, they could live in your living room. This opened door for filmmakers all over the world. The 2000s saw directors from South Korea, Mexico, and beyond gain international recognition. Global cinema became a conversation, not a competition. In just over a century, film went from flickering black and white reels to an art that could reach every corner of the planet. It shaped politics, fashion, and language. It created stars, movements, and memories. But like every golden age, the glow eventually started to dim. The magic that once united millions in front of a single glowing screen began to scatter across living rooms, laptops, and now phones. The world changed faster than cinema could keep up. Audiences who once lined up around the block for a movie now scroll past them in seconds. This is where the story shifts from the glory days to the slow rots.
Oh no.
It's wild to think how fast the tide has turned. We went from the golden age when theaters were temples and of culture and movie stars were gods to an era where studios celebrate one box office win as if it's a miracle. Because the truth is, as Ryan Faulkner bluntly put it, business is bad, really bad. In early 2025, ticket sales across the US and Canada barely reached 1.34 billion, a 7% drop from the year before. And even March, the month studios usually count on to kick off the blockbuster season, fell by 50% compared to 2024. Movies that were supposed to be sure hits, Snow White, The Alto Night, The Fall Guy, all fizzled. Sure, not every movie is a flop, and at last, Pixar Inside Out 2 managed to cross 1.7 billion worldwide, but overall, Hollywood's yearly revenue still sits 23% below 2019, and if you adjust it for inflation, it's closer to 30%. As Jeff Black summed it up perfectly, with only one film hitting 1 billion worldwide, it's clear Hollywood still needs some tinkering in terms of how to engage audiences. So basically, Hollywood is having a hard time to re engage and connect with their audiences, which is something I have to agree on. The problem isn't just that people stopped watching movies, it just they've stopped watching it the same way. The cause of it is not only one. but the reason of many which I organize in four major forces reshaping everything we know about cinema: economics, culture, creativity, and technology. I'm not gonna keep you up waiting, and let's start with the first one, which is the economic storm. The box office that once was the heartbeat of Hollywood is now on life support. Ticket sales are falling, production budgets are ballooning, marketing costs are spilling out of control. And streaming, this savior everyone bets on, has turned into both a blessing and a curse at the same time. As Richard put it, after years of hybrid releases and on demand premieres, it's been difficult to put the genie back in the bottle. Streaming isn't just didn't just change how we watch movies, it's rewired the whole industry. We used to plan movie nights, now we scroll endlessly through algorithm. Platforms like Netflix, Disney Plus, and Prime made film watching easy, a little bit too easy. Theaters turned into luxuries and living rooms became multiplex. When the pandemic hit, studios embraced daily one streaming releases and audiences never looked back. Streaming really changed also the economics of storytelling. Instead of chasing one big hit, studios now chase endless subscriptions. And with Netflix producing over 6,000 original titles, the market is oversaturated. Quantity over quality, unfortunately. It gave more device creators access, yes, but as Garza warned, streaming broadened opportunities, but at the same time weakened the communal experiences of cinema. People are still watching, but alone on their phones, half distracted. But it feels like this is also changing, in my opinion, as a lot of people are starting to get sick of subscription, and to be able to watch just one movie, you have to have a lot of subscription. That's like something that I have a problem with that. Anyway, let's get back to the subject. And even when people do show up to theaters, the economics still don't make sense because the cost of making and selling a movie has never been higher than now. In Hollywood today, even the biggest directors are gambling with loaded dice. Every production, from casting to visual effects to global marketing, now costs more than ever. And yet, as former Paramount executive David Picker famously said, successes in film often feels like a coin toss, basically another form of gambling. Even higher prestige film struggles to break even. Hugo 2011, 5 Oscars yet lost 100 million. Blade Runner 2049 cost nearly 400 million to make and market, but missed profit by 80 million. Tar 2022, critically adored, financially dead on arrival. Meanwhile, Paranormal Activity shot on a 50,000 budget made 193 million. It's proof that sometimes the simplest stories win where spectacle fails. But if there is one thing Hollywood loves more than box office numbers, it's branding, and that's where the next layer of the problem lies. Somewhere along the way, movies stopped being movies and became marketing campaigns. Take Sony's Godzilla 1998. It cost 125 million to produce, but over 200 million to market. That's like crazy. The slogan "Size Does Matter" was plastered everywhere from billboards to Burger King toys. This formula worked, at least financially. It turns film into a global brand where ticket sales were just the first layer. That model exploded in 2000s. The Lion King sold billion in toys. Harry Potter built an entire merchandising empire. Frozen became a retail phenomenon, selling over 5 billion in Elsa dolls, costumes, and music alone. And Barbie 2023 took it to the next level. As 150 million marketing campaign, over 100 brand partnership from Xbox to Airbnb. It wasn't just a movie, it was an event engineered to dominate every screen, every feed, every pink object in sight. But as critic Dixon 1998 warned decades ago, this strategy comes with a cost. Movies are no longer stories, they're ecosystems of content. And even if you're still wanting to support that ecosystem, good luck affording it. Here's the final piece of the economic puzzle. It's just so expensive to go to theaters nowadays. In the US, the average ticket price has jumped from $6.21 in 2004 to $10 in 2024. 68 increase. Add snacks, drinks, and parking, and one night can easily hit $50 or more. And it's worse for families. A single mother interviewed by the numbers said their best. It's heartbreaking because I can't take my kids to the movies anymore. It's just too expensive. And isn't just an American issue. Across Europe, ticket prices doubled between 2022 and 2024, so from €6 to €12. It's not just inflation, it's a mismatch between rising costs and stagnant wages. As one Reddit user put it, everything is inflating except our paychecks. No wonder 66.8% of adults now say there's other ways for streaming releases than go to theaters. Even theaters workers admit that foot traffic has plummeted. I remember when there used to be lines out the door. Now it's just a fraction of that. So that's the economic side, the dollars and the cents behind the downfall. But cinema isn't just a business, it's a reflection of how we think, live, and feel. And lately, that reflection has been changing because even when the screens are full, something about the experience feels empty. Let's talk about the cultural and audience shifts that are reshaping what going to the movies even means.
Times change, people change.
So we've talked about the money. But honestly, what's happening to the audience might be even more important because it's not just the fewer people are going to theaters, is that the entire relationship between people and movies has changed. We live in an age of infinite scroll, of 10-second TikToks and bingeable Netflix marathons and content that never ends. Cinema used to be a ritual. You dressed up, you bought your tickets, you shared the dark with strangers. Now it's a background noise while you fold laundry or scroll Instagram, which is I'm guilty of. As a critic, Matthew Belloni 2023 put it, adult drama have really struggled in theaters and increasingly they're going straight to streaming. It's true, mid-budget films, the kinds that used to define Hollywood, have all but vanished from cinema. You don't see many The Devil Wears Prada or Goodwill Hunting type release anymore. Instead, theaters have become temples for only the biggest spectacle. Top Gun, Maverick, Avatar The Way of Water, Dune Part 2. Everything else straight to streaming. And that's where the real shift begins in how we consume stories. Let's be real, our attention spans have collapsed through this years, especially after the pandemic. A full movie now feels like a commitment. People prefer to watch a 15-second clip, feel something, and move on. Platforms like YouTube, Shorts, and TikTok have trained us to crave instant dopamine, short, loud, emotional bursts. At the 2024 Miami Mumbai Films Festival, one speaker even said that short films are no longer as stepping stones, they are the cinema of Gen Z. It's fast, it's accessible, it's everywhere, and it fits perfectly into the rhythm of modern life. But the problem is, this habit has rewired our brains. We now expect stories to resolve instantly. So when we sit in a theater for 2 and 3 half hours with no skip button, it feels like an alien. It feels alien. Even Netflix had learned into this culture, designing the shows to be binge watched cliffhangers after cliffhanger. That's not a coincidence, it's a strategy. Because as studies from Northern Medicine 2021 and Jaja 2024 found binge watching triggers the same dopamine patterns as addictive behavior. It feels good, but it also trains us to consume, not to reflect. And this obsession with instant gratifications doesn't just change how we watch, it changes what we expect movies to be. There was a time when Hollywood ruled the world. If it didn't come from LA, it barely existed. But that's not really the truth anymore, and maybe that's for the good thing. In 2010, American films made up 90% of the global office. By 2024, that number had dropped to 69%. China, Japan, India, and South Korea have built their own thriving industry that can compete or even dominate internationally. Think about it. South Korea went from niche to global with Parasite and Squid Game. India, RRR, and Pathan broke into Western markets with massive hype. And China is building cinematic universes of its own. The Wandering Earth, Nizha 2, films that make billions without even needing a US audience. I'm sorry if I butchered, by the way, the names. Hollywood knows this. That's why studios now design films to appeal to everyone, everywhere. That means fewer complex cultural stories and more universal or sometimes sanitized blockbusters. Remember when Red Dawn literally changed its villains digitally from Chinese to North Korean just to avoid censorship? Yeah, that's the reality of a global cinema right now. As one analyst put it, Hollywood still leads, but it no longer dominates. It's a multipolar world, and Hollywood crown isn't as shiny as it used to be. But while new audiences rise, Hollywood itself is trapped in an old habit. A habit that's slowly eating away at its creativity.
Who wants nostalgia anymore?
Here's the thing. People love comforts. We love to revisit words that make us feel safe. I'm sorry. That's why studio keep rebooting, remaking, and reimagining every story we ever loved. But at some point, comfort turns into boredom. As film journalist Marco 2025 wrote, audiences are growing tired of the diminishing return of long-lasting franchises and the necessary reboots. Disney's decision to remake Moana just 7 years after the original was met with outrage. People called it soulish, cash grabby, a remake of a memory that isn't even nostalgic yet. Warner Bros. Is reviving Harry Potter and the Lord of the Rings, while Marvel and DC pump up sequels faster than anyone can keep up. And yes, it works until it doesn't. Because of for every Top Gun Maverick that hits big, there is a Fantastic Beasts 3 or Indiana Jones 5 that flops. As one Reddit user put it, you can only beat that dead horse for so long before people stop caring. Which is actually so funny. It's not that the audiences hate sequels, they just hate lazy ones. John Wick, for example, proved that if a franchise stays fresh, it can still thrive. But too often, studios change nostalgia instead of innovation. And when you combine nostalgia fatigue with rising prices and economic issues and stress, you get a perfect storm that turns movie going from a passion into a luxury. And that brings us to the last and maybe most emotional part of this downfall, is that the creativity crisis. You can feel it, right? The sameness. Every trailer looks familiar, every poster feels recycles, and every big release somehow connects to something that's already been existing. It's not your imagination, it's just the system. Hollywood has become terrified of taking risks. Benjamin Franklin once says that nothing in life is certain except death and taxes. If he were alive today, he'd probably add one more thing: sequels. In 2024, 9 out of the 10 highest grossing films were either sequels, reboots, or adaptations. Inside Out 2, Deadpool, and the Wolverine Despicable Me 4, Moana 2, Dune Part 2, you get the point. The only semi original hit, Wicked. Shahid Ziadi summed it up perfectly. It feels I thought sequels and reboots has taken up a large chunk of film and TV, leaving very little room for energy and original stories. And she's right. Hollywood keeps choosing the safest option in the room. It's not about art anymore, it's about risk management. Here's the logic. Original films make about 2.8 times their budget back, while sequels make 0.42 times. So, from a business perspective, remakes and IPs are just safer. Disney alone made 7 billion from live action remakes between 2010 and 2019. That's why they keep doing it. Because as one Reddit user put it, nearly all the top 10 American movies in the last 3 years have been from existing IPs. Up until 2023, not a single original American movie made 500 million. It's not that the audience stopped caring about new stories, it's that studios stopped trusting them. And when the system only funds that what's already proven to sell, originality becomes a luxury. Every once in a while, something cuts through the noise, and in 2023, two completely original movies, Barbie and Oppenheimer, became a global event. They weren't sequels, they weren't remakes, they weren't part of a cinematic universe, and yet together they made over 2 billion worldwide. They even turned movie-going itself into a cultural moment again. People dressed in pink, debated which to see first, created memes, and it felt alive. Then you had Past Lives and Anatomy of a Fall, smaller films that quickly reminded everyone that originality can still win hearts and awards. So clearly, the audience isn't completely the problem here. As Owen Gleiberman once wrote, Hollywood has once rehearsed the same old stuff and expected people to show up. And for the long times, they did. But now people are asking for something more. And that's it. We're tired of comfort. We want a surprise again. Even the most dominant genre of the past 15 years, the superhero film, is showing cracks. Marvel's Fantastic Four first sets barely crossed 468 million worldwide. James Gunn's Superman 2025 couldn't even reach 600 million. That might sound like a big number, but in the world of $1 billion franchises, it's a warning sign. The audience is exhausted. Critics call it franchise fatigue, but maybe it's more like emotional fatigue. Because when every story follows the same templates, when every word feels pre-sold, nothing feels like a surprise anymore. Meanwhile, in China, an original film animated Needs Had to made 2.2 billion. No superheroes, no pre-existing IPs, just a good story told well. So maybe it's not that audiences don't care about cinema anymore. Maybe it's that Hollywood has stopped giving them something worth caring about. But creativity isn't the only thing that's struggling here. Technology, once the heart of innovation in filmmaking, is now part of the problem too. Let's talk about how VFX and CGI and AR are both saving and suffocating cinema.
I don't even know where to start.
Technology has always been cinema's greatest ally and its most dangerous addiction. From the magic tricks of George Méliès in A Trip to the Moon to James Cameron's revolutionary 3D in Avatar. Filmmakers have always pushed the technology to expand what story could look like. But lately, the question isn't just what we can do, it's what left to do. We've reached a point where movies can show us anything, entire worlds built from code, faces de-aged by AI performance, resources from the dead, and yet audiences are feeling less connected than ever. As one critic from VFX, a visual trait or trick, put it, throwing a whole bunch of visual effects into a movie does not make a good movie. That's the paradox of modern filmmaking. The more we can fake, the less we seem to believe. At its best, VFX is invisible. It serves the story. Think of Jurassic Park, where dinosaurs felt real because they were partly animatronic, grounded in something tactical. Or The Lord of the Ring trilogy, where motion capture brought Gollum to life through Andy Serkis' human performance. Technology there didn't replace emotions, it enhanced it. But in modern blockbusters, that balance is actually fading nowadays. Franchises like Transformers turned into what one critic called it's a beautiful explosion of nothing. It's all motion, no emotion, and that's the danger when visual becomes the main event, narrative becomes the casualty. And just as CGI began to dominate storytelling, another kind of technology entered the room, quieter, faster, and far more unpredictable. Not one that just builds words, but one that tries to think like us. Artificial intelligence is now the latest obsession and the latest fear. Tyler Nixon praised AI speed, saying it can eliminate weeks of preparation and allow more budgets for cameras, packages, costumes, and sets. In the Brutalist 2024, the Ukrainian company Respeech even used AI to adjust Adrian Brody's accent subtly, mainly just replacing letters here and there. But when it's replace creativity entirely, the line between art and automation blurs. As Nixon Smith warns, imagine a future where Marvel movies are made entirely by a computer, overseen by one person at a desk, at a fraction of the cost. It's not hard to picture. Unfortunately, studios already see the financial temptations. But what happens to human imagination in that world? During the 2023 Hollywood strikes, actors D.Y. McCain said it best. People have lived experiences that AI just can't understand. That's the heart of the issue. Storytelling isn't data, it's empathy, it's memories, it's human. But while AI raises questions about authorship and authenticity, it's not the only technology shaping or restraining modern cinema. There's another tool that defines the visual identity of our era and that what can either elevate emotion or erase it entirely. CGI has opened breathtaking doors. It gave us The Matrix, Avatar, Toy Story, each groundbreaking at a time. As Jimenez 2023 words, the only limit is the imagination of the filmmakers and the skills of the visual effects artists. But imagination costs money and patience. When studios were CGI or lean on it as a replacement for a vision, audience notice. The result is the uncanny valley, that eerie space where digital perfections just feels wrong. Think of The Irishman, where the de-aging tech was fascinating, but something was distracting. You watch De Niro 40-year-old face move like a 75-year-old body. The issue isn't technology itself, it's how we use it. When visual becomes the story, the emotional connection just fades. That's why Paranormal Activity, made for only 15,000, earned 193 million. It let imagination do the work. It's proof that suspense and storytelling can outshine spectacle. And if CGI, VFX, and AI have shown us anything, is that technology can make or break films depending on how it's used. Some movies master their, others drown in it. Let's take a closer look. John Carter, a 263 million visual epic that drowned on its own digital access, losing over 200 million. Audiences saw the CGI but not the soul. Cat's digital for technology became an internet punchline. It cost 100 million and made only 75 million. The visuals meant to impress, instead repelled. Avatar, the opposite story, getting edge VFX used with purpose. It earned 2.9 billion because Cameron used technology to serve wonder, not replace it. Paranormal Activity proved that a good idea executed simply can eclipse multi-million-dollar spectacles. As Muro Delayev observes, technology has refined the visual and emotional language of storytelling, but the challenge is ensuring it serves narrative rather than replacing it. Or, as Nixon Smith put it in an even more sharply, the future of cinema depends on whether we establish ethical boundaries for art or let it devolve into a mass production. So, if technology, economics, and creativity are colliding, what will happen? What will happen next? What kind of cinema survive in the storm of algorithm, inflation, and franchise fatigues? To answer that, we have to look at the future and ask, can the film industry still reinvent itself, or are we all watching it slow fade to black?
What a tragedy.
So is the film industry really ending? People have been predicting the death of cinema for as long as cinema existed. When television arrived, they said movies were over. When VHS came, they said the same thing. And when streaming came, same story. But somehow the light is still on and is always coming back. Yes, the numbers are sobering. Hollywood major studios are shrinking fast. Between 1995 to 2009, the six big studios released about 112 films a year. From 2009 to 2023, that dropped to 83. And after Disney swallowed 20th Century Fox, the ecosystem became even smaller. Box office revenue tell the same story. Before the pandemic, the global box office averaged around $40 billion. By 2022 and 2023, it was barely half that. And in the US, ticket sales have fallen 38% in a decade, even as prices 33%. Theaters are fighting for survival. 40,000 US screens battling for fewer films to show, while chains like AMC rely on meme stock hype to stay alive. In Cineworld only recently carved out of bankruptcy. Even streaming, once as hailed the savior, is pulling back. Netflix has cut its own original movie slate from 80 plus films a year to just 20 into 30, and theatrical releases still make it up 77% of the global streaming catalog. Paramount's global potential site could leave only four major studios standing, the smallest number in Hollywood history. So yes, it's not paranoia, it's a contraction. But as John Fithian reminds us, people have been pronouncing the death of movie theaters for a decade, and it's never been the case. Even Reddit agrees. A user on r/filmmakers put it simply, every era ends, but that's how new ones begin. And they're right, because just when it feels like cinema final acts, a surprise hit walls and take credits. In 2025, Minecraft opened to 163 million, Ryan Googler Sinners hit 275 million, and Disney Lilo and Stitch remake reached 183 million. Add Mission Impossible, The Final Reckoning, and Marvel's Thunderbolts, and suddenly the US box office jumped 80% year on year. Memorial Day weekend alone was 20%, 22% higher than 2024, with projection topping 4 billion for the summer, nearly pre-pandemic levels. And there is a stories like Sinners, which didn't just sell tickets, it built community. Audiences in Clarksdale, Mississippi gathered for special screening that turned into a local event, showing that cinema still connects people in ways no algorithm can. So no, the film industry isn't really dying. It's just revolving, it's evolving and tricking in some ways and expanding in some other ways. As Daniela Loria said, cinema is a risky business because it reinvents itself every week. That reinvention is exactly why it will never truly end. So what can be done to fix the film industry? Maybe the question isn't is cinema really dying, but rather how do we help it live it differently, because even though the system feels broken, from box office bombs to Oscars nobody watches, there is still a heartbeat under that noise. As Awards Daily wrote in 2025, Hollywood took a major hit this year. The box office was not good. Bomb after bomb hit theaters. There is something very wrong with the system. But wrong doesn't mean over. It means disconnected at the very least. Richard Rushford argues the problem isn't just the movies, it's the distance between Hollywood and its audiences. He said the Oscars and the whole Hollywood ecosystem have become niche niche at best and irrelevant at worst. But others take it even further. Some critics at Awards Daily argue that Hollywood needs to get over itself, so stop treating audiences like algorithm or political statements. As one writer said bluntly, movies have to be aimed at the majority, at normal people, and be universal in their storytelling, not work, not performative. Now, whether you agree or not, the frustration behind the quotes is real. It's there, it's weird, we can do nothing about it. Audiences are craving sincerity again, not spectacle or self congratulation, but feeling. That's where creators like Thomas Flies, a YouTuber and film essayist, stepped in with a different perspective. I actually watched the video like yesterday, and I really actually like it, so I said why not to add it to the video. It's a good, it has like good, insights, and I really want to talk about it, so let's get into it. So in his 2025 video, why the movies will never feel the same, he argues the problem isn't politics or bad writing, it's attention. Cinema's biggest advantage is its ability to demand time and focus attentions, to ask an audience to sit down and give their full and undivided attention to a complete story. And what he advised is to stop trying to compete with TikTok, and cinema will never be faster, so it should be deeper. He also believed theater shouldn't try to imitate home comfort. There should be they should become communities, spaces again, places where people come to experience something together, talk about it, and argue and feel, just like really theaters used to be. Because what's being lost isn't just box office, it's connections. Maybe that's the fix. Maybe people need to connect with each other and talk about the movies more. Not new gadgets, not new franchises, but restoring the bond between stories and the people they're meant to move. Because if cinema has survived the death of TV, VHS, and streaming, maybe it's not dying after all. And maybe cinema isn't disappearing, and maybe it's just transforming. So it's becoming something smaller, slower, but intimate. A place where for 2 hours you put your phone away, sit in dark with strangers, and remember what it feels like to feel something real. Okay, So, personally, when it comes to my opinion, I had to agree with almost everything that I've said in this episode. I don't think the film industry is really dying. I think it's an exaggeration. I think I've been hearing the same thing for over years right now that the cinema is dead, and but no, we're still here. Sure, the industry is really shrinking. The quality of movies that it's not as good as it used to be, especially for me. Uh, I started watching movies in 2010s. That was like for me the peak of cinema back then. But there's still some good movies that comes out every year, but not as much as it used to be for sure. But anyway, I also wanted to add um some points that can probably make the film industry a little bit better than what it is right now. So I personally think Hollywood needs to start giving new fresh faces a chance. I honestly getting tired of seeing the same five actors everywhere, in every movie. Good for them. Don't get me wrong, but there is so much undiscovered talent out there. Actors who are just as good, if not better, and still have that raw passion for the crafts. Hollywood need to start opening the doors for new people. And another thing we need to talk about is nepotism, which is something that really have been getting on my nerve lately. There is a really a big problem when it comes to nepotism. There was a phenomenon in Hollywood, and not all of them like salad, don't get me wrong, but let's be honest, thanks to their connections, it's make it easier for them to go through doors that normal people can't. And they take opportunities from people who work their whole life for that shot, and it's not fair. It's just so wrong and not fair, personally. That's what I think. That's my personal opinion. And mm, um I also think that even if a nepo baby, a nepo actors, really does a bad job in an acting gig, he will still or she will get still um a second chance. But if it was like a regular, normal guy or girl, um, fresh face, I do not think that will be the case, unfortunately. So which is really not fair. Which really not fair. So yeah, this episode took me a long time to make. I'm not gonna lie, we this is the end of the episode. So I took me too much time to do research and of course write the scripts because I cannot speak for the I cannot speak without having a script because I will go through subject to subject like this. But anyway, I finally, and I'm really sorry if I sound a little bit bad. I don't know if my voice sound bad because I'm really sick right now, and actually I've been postponing recording this video for a while now because I just started working again. Yes, this girl is employed finally. But yeah, life has been being good for me lately. So yeah, I'm really sorry if I sound bad, if I pronounce. I know I pronounce a lot of stuff badly. I literally can't speak correctly right now. But yeah, again, I'm really open to criticism. I would love to hear to hear your opinion on the comments if it's possible. And thank you for watching. I really appreciate it. And this is, by the way, a monthly episode podcast. So yeah, so I will see you next month. I will try my best to be consistent also, and I might post some vlogs sometimes, but I don't know, not anytime sooner. I will be posting some vlogs maybe because this is actually used to be my personal channel, but I just stopped doing that. Anyway, bye. Thank you for watching.